that for everybody here. We ask God for things all the time, and God, I need this, I need a job, and my grandma needs healing, and I need money, and I need this. God, show me what to do. This is what I believe. He's not going to answer everything on purpose. He'll show you a few things. But referring back to the test, let's say from the time you were in kindergarten, your kindergarten teacher said, here are the test questions, and here are the answers. Go home, study them. When you come back next Friday, we'll take the test, bring the answers, just copy them down. If every single one of our teachers did that from the time we were in kindergarten to the time we graduated high school or college or whatever, we would be stupid. We would be very, very dumb because we didn't learn anything. The tests that I did cheat on, hypothetically, I didn't learn anything. You know what really stinks? Is when you cheat on this test and this test and this test, and then you have that final exam, you're in rows with everybody, and there's a Scantron, and the teachers are walking up and down the aisle. There's no way to cheat. And teachers find out very soon, like very easily, who cheated in that class when they see 100, 100, 100, 100, 30. If our teachers gave us the answers to everything, we wouldn't know anything. If God answered every question that you had, how much would you actually learn? How much would you learn versus you going out and doing it yourself? Now, there's some things that we can't do ourselves. I understand that. But we ask God for all these things over and over and over again, and God sometimes is just sitting back saying, when are you going to stop talking? What I want you to do is to figure out how to solve this problem on your own. That's where testimonies come from. That's where my testimony came from. Now, I know there's some people in here who are saying, I have to learn everything by experience. I need to make my own mistakes. There's a time in my life where I said that, and I had so much fun making my own mistakes. It was a blast. I would go to this party, and I would be with this people, and we would do these sorts of things. I'm not going to say what any of that was. And it was fun. Until that one thing happened. And it just flipped my world upside down. And who did I blame? I blamed God. God, why did you let this happen to me? I remember the day, my dad knows this one. He remembers the date, the time, the year, the month. We know exactly when this was that I had his truck, and I didn't listen to him. And I went out to that party, and I drank a lot. That's all I remember. And sometime on the way home, I fell asleep. And it was a straight road. And I remember the last marker that I saw versus the next marker that I saw. And it was at least a mile in between. So I was sleeping for a mile. And I was going about 70. Thank God it was a straight road. The next thing I know, I'll come up to this intersection. I used to live out in Salinas. This is way out in the country. And I go flying through this intersection down into this field. And the truck just, I don't know how it didn't flip. I don't know how that happened. Going 70 miles per hour, you would think a truck would flip into a ditch. And the truck comes to a halt. I come falling out of the truck. I drop down on my knees. And I blamed God. Why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening to me? God, how am I supposed to recover from this? My dad's truck is totaled. How am I supposed to come back from this? This is what he told me. There were so many times, Alex, that I tried to get your attention. just really listening. We ask God for something and he gives us an answer and we're like, I don't like that answer. I'm going to do something different. That was my point in life where I had to learn everything for myself. I'm not like that anymore. If you're one of those people, I hope it doesn't take for you what it took for me to realize your purpose in life. Now at the same time, that's when I started writing songs. That's when I never even sung before that. Never. I played guitar, that was about it. But ever since that moment, I started writing songs. And I had no idea I would be doing this for a career. Not just some, here's a little stipend here and there. This is my job. And the coolest thing in the world to me is that I love what I do more than anything, almost more than anything. I love it so much. But up here on this stage, this isn't worship. This is just a form of worship. This is not the entirety of worship. Where else can you find worship? God had to teach me a really, really, really hard lesson that night. And I was in such a dark place. That was the worst year of my life. But I decided, you know what? There are people in my life that I don't need to be around with anymore. And in that moment, I cut every single one of them off. And when I say every single one of them, I mean I had no more friends. I didn't hang out with anybody. That's what it took for me to get on the right path. That's what's going to take some of you. Maybe not all your friends, but maybe it's that girl. Maybe it's that guy. Maybe it's that one group. You know who they are. Don't pretend like you don't. But in that moment, I realized that no matter how dark things were, no matter how dark it got, I had to worship him. My wife is so incredibly talented. She had this dream. She had two dreams. And the first one, this one was about me. She dreamed, if they can zoom in on this. She dreamed that, this is me by the way, so cute. Stop it. She dreamed that I was in waist deep water. It was pouring down rain, and there was just a line of people following me. And we just had our hands up, and we were worshiping God. And she told me that, and then she painted it for me. And so now this hangs up in my room, or my desk, for me to see all the time, that when things are dark, I need to worship my way out of it. The other dream that she had, there was a dark hole. It was like a pit. If you've seen The Dark Knight Rises, I'm not going to tell you what happens in it, but that hole. And there were these people at the bottom of it, and they couldn't get out. Every time they tried to climb, they would just fall back down. They tried to climb, they'd fall. They tried to climb, they'd fall. Over and over and over again. It was dark, they were scared, they thought they were going to die. So what did they decide to do? Instead of just giving up, they said, God, we're going to worship you. So they started to worship. And they worshiped. And they worshiped at the bottom of this dark hole. And then it started to rain. And the more they worshipped, the darkness is, I'm going to worship you regardless. So they worshiped, and they worshiped, and they worshiped, and it kept raining down on them. It just rained over and over and over again, but the water was rising up in this hole, and these people who were at the bottom and could barely see the top looked up, and all of a sudden the top was in reach. So they kept on worshiping. They worshipped over and over and over again. It doesn't have to be anything super spiritual. C3, you don't have to cry. You don't have to get down on your knees. You don't have to scream. You don't have to shout. You just have to worship. Where is your worship? It rained. They worshipped. The water rose. It rained. They worshipped. The water rose. And suddenly they realized we can get out. They reached up, and one by one, each of them climbed out of the hole. They looked back, and they saw this hole that was filled to the top with water. They were so deep in it, but now they're free. So what do? They keep on worshiping. They keep on worshiping. They're out of that dark spot now. Things are great now. My worship doesn't change. My worship is still the same. C3, I want to challenge you today. I'll go ahead and say it. I don't care what you're going through. And to an extent, neither does God. He just wants you to prove to Him that you'll worship regardless. And if you can worship your way out of that pit, if you can worship your way out of that hole, if you can worship your way out of that cancer, out of that sickness, out of that disease, if you can worship your way out of poverty, out of depression, out of suicidal thoughts, if you can worship your way out of it, it's unconditional. It's not easy to worship when things are hard. It's not easy to worship when everybody's turned their back on you. But He made a promise.